Let's talk more then about the upcoming voter registration drive. Bring in IEC Commissioner Janet Love. A very good evening to you, Janet. Always good to have you on Newzroom Afrika. 27 million people already registered to vote, the highest we've seen since the dawn of democracy 30 years ago. It will be this year. Why do you think there's such a heightened, if you will, interest perhaps in people wanting to vote?
Well, I think that there is a lot of expectation that has arisen, an energy about people having the additional choice of independent candidates. I think that there is also just a momentum that has been able to be created by a lot of the outreach activity by the Commission and also other partners, and working together with people like yourselves. But also, very importantly, I think that the online registration tool and the effectiveness of the voter management device, and in that sense the injection of new technology, has excited people.
And let's talk about new technology, because whenever the elections come around, especially in the last, decade or so, there's been the ever-recurring conversation about the IEC moving much more of the processes around the way in which we vote even, and the counting in that direction. Does the success of the online registration service signal that perhaps we're more ready now than we've ever been to do so?
I think that it is a signal that the Commission is really embracing technology, but in a manner that is in keeping with what the country is able to embrace, from just the footprint of data and network access for one, as well as knowledge, but also what the country is embracing in terms of trust. It's because technology can't be introduced without ensuring that we're doing the right technology, we're doing it in consultation with all the stakeholders, and that's what I think the online registration application and the voter management device signal. But we certainly are part of the community of electoral management institutions that recognize we need to embrace technology. We've recognized that some time ago, and I'm sure that we will make additional strides as we go forward.
And is the IEC feeling, certainly, that 30 years into this democracy, with the pressure that even the political parties are feeling, that there is something different, there is a shift perhaps in the country and how we view elections this time around, not just because of the time, the historic significance of 3 decades of democracy, but everything else?
I think that a lot of people in this country have, and particularly younger people who have been active for some time, are beginning to understand that even if there are different ways to express themselves in terms of political activism and in terms of social responsibility, elections are a very critical part of doing that. And I think an increasing number of young people are recognizing that. I think that the category of the 20s, 30s, and 40s is a category that has grown significantly, and that too is an indication that there's renewed interest. There's a feeling that, yes, citizens do own the democracy, citizens do take it forward, and that's what these elections are about.
And on the issue of young people, it's one thing to register, of course, but what's going to really matter is the issue of turnout on election day once we've got a date.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think what's also going to matter is that when people turn out, and in fact what would motivate them to turn out, is that the people, the candidates, the parties, the independent candidates from which they're going to be able to choose are candidates who put forward ideas and possibilities that inspire young people to really come forward and to be part of a process. So we are appealing very much to the candidates to really find ways to communicate, especially with young people, as to how whatever they're putting forward is going to be inspirational to get younger people who have registered, and all of them should register, including 17-year-olds, because they might become eligible only in a few months, but that would make them eligible if they registered to vote. If those people can be inspired, we really are looking to that, and we will continue working with other stakeholders, particularly yourselves in the media, to continue to encourage people to own our democracy.
And, Janet, you talk about encouraging especially the youth, to participate in these elections beyond registering, because for some it may have been easy to do because, well, if you've got a smartphone, it was possible to do from your couch, etc. But are you finding that you perhaps have to change the language because the electorate is getting so much younger in this country, and even some of the traditional approaches may not necessarily be as effective as they were, let's say, in the first 3 or 4 elections?
Well, I think language certainly does need to change, but I think also the 2 other things need to change. First of all, what the content is about. Today we are seeing a world where climate change is much more prevalent as an issue in so many people's lives, not just in terms of fires and flooding here, but just globally. And so a lot of younger people are automatically expecting to have much more information about that, as well as the answers about how the voting action will enable them to see changes in very significant areas of their lives, whether it's to do with housing, whether it's to do with education, and so on. So I think that the content, and then secondly, the method of delivery. None of us can function without embracing the opportunities of social media and doing that responsibly, but also being mindful of the dangers of disinformation and how to identify those, how to recognize them, and how to protect ourselves against them. So all of those come into play when we're dealing with the younger generations, but also when we're dealing with the new realities.
And just on that, when we talk about voter apathy, sometimes we speak about it quite broadly, and to a degree there's a bit of a passing of the buck, if you will, around whose responsibility it is to address that. And when you look at why a lot of people are apathetic, it's not because they don't have trust or confidence in the work of the IEC. There are issues with their political representatives, and I wonder to what degree the IEC should even be trying to address that sort of problem, and to what degree it would be able to deal with that when the core frustration is not with you and the work that you do in the democratic process.
Well, it's really important that you say this. At the same time, I think that what we really do want to get out as a message to people, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be yourself a candidate or even an active member of a political party that is going to put you forward as a candidate, but you also need to take on board the hard work of being a citizen, and a lot of that requires painstaking work of holding people to account, exposing corruption, finding out about what the budget is, whether it's of your school, in the case of school governing bodies, in the case of what's happening in your municipality, and in the case of what's happening in terms of all the plans and promises that are made, how are those reflected in provincial and national budgets? And a lot of that requires young people on an ongoing basis to engage as citizens. And I don't think it's because of apathy. I think it's also because we need to find ways as a country to ensure that people who are elected into office communicate in not just transparent ways, but in ways in which information is a lot more accessible. And as I say, social media is certainly one mechanism to do that.
Let me be naughty for a moment, Janice, and ask, are you hearing any whispers about a date? Because that's what we're all waiting for now.
Look, we're all waiting, and I'm glad you say all. So whispers about a date, what we've really been able, I think, to communicate quite effectively is that the IEC systems will be and will be ready to go at the earliest opportunity of the election possibility. What we've encouraged is, regardless of whether the date will be on the earlier or the later side, we are really hopeful that an announcement about that date prior to proclamation will be made sooner rather than later, because we think for everybody it just creates a different energy, and so we're hopeful that that will be possible. I think everybody would like that.
Janet Love, good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.